Hello and welcome back to another video on Roman numerals. Now in my last video we talked about how the Romans used letters to signify numbers and how they put them together, and as you'll remember we had I equals 1, V equals 5, X equals 10, L equals 50 and C equals 100. Now I'm going to move on from this as well. We've got two more that we're going to add today. We've got D, which equals 500. And lastly, we've got M, which equals 1,000. So there we go. Now, a couple of things to remember. We cannot repeat. I'm going to write that up here. We cannot repeat the numerals more than 3 times. So if we want to do a 4 or a 9 or a 40 or a 90, we have to put a 1 in front of a 5 or a 10 or a 10 in front of 100. So I'm going to just explain a bit more about that when we've done some examples. So the first thing I'm going to just remind you is 5, okay, is you can't repeat or subtract with V and 5, okay? So I couldn't, for example, do VL to mean 5 less than 50 as 45, okay? I can't repeat or subtract, and the same with 50 and L. I can't repeat or subtract. And the same with 500. So just think of those multiples of 5. Powers of 5. I can't repeat or subtract those. So I think one of the best things we can do is just do some examples, and I'm going to come across to some situations where it's easy to make a mistake. So let me get my blue pen and we'll do some things like this. So for example, let's go for 38. I think I'm going to use my green pen, change my mind. So I've got 38, and that's going to be 10, 20, 30, 5, 6, 7, 8, no problem. Now look at what I'm going to do for 39. For 39, I'm going to go 10, 20, 30, but I can't go V and then 4 because I can't repeat more than 3 times. So I'm going to go 1 less than 10, I, X. So that's 10, 20, 30, and then 1 less than 9. Another way that's quite useful, I find, is the Romans always they were quite careful about their place value, believe it or not. So you can almost think, you can imagine drawing a little line down here, and I've got 30, and then I've got 8. And here, I've got 30, and then I've got 9. So don't start thinking that's 31 and then another 10 to give you 41. You'll get in all sorts of trouble. Let's look at a couple of others. So let's look at 45. I'm getting a bit trickier now. Now remember, I can't do 4 lots of 10 to make 40, so I'm going to have to go 10 less than 50. So that's going to be XL. So I've done my 40 now, because I've got 10 less than 50 is 40. And then I put my V for the 5, that's 45. Now this is where I'm going to come on to next. Let's look at 49. Now some people might think to themselves, right, I know that L is 50, okay, and all I need to do is just put a 1. I'm going to write this in red, and I'm going to put a wrong around it. You might want to do 1 and then L. Now that makes sense, doesn't it? Because in the same way that this was 40, 10 less than 50, you might think, well, to make 49, that's 50, and that is 1 less than 50. There's two reasons why that's not correct. The first is we're using one calculation, if you like, 1 less than 50, to describe the tens and the units. And as I showed you here, the Romans were quite keen on separating their place value. Also, I can only subtract from the next two along in the line, okay? So I can subtract 1. Let's see if I can do an arrow here. I can subtract 1 from 5 and from 10, okay? That is not a problem, all right? I'll put my subtract here. I can't subtract 5 anyway, so I'll miss that out. I can subtract 10 from 50 and from 100. And I can subtract 100 from 500 and 1,000, okay? What I can't do is, for example, subtract 1 from 100, or I can't subtract 1 from 500. I can only subtract from the next two along in the order they come on. So going back to this one, let's write a wrong here. I'm going to have to do my 40, which we know is XL, okay, because that's 10 less than 50. And if you like, I've now got my place value column worked out here. That's the 40. And then I'm going to do IX for 1 less than 10, which is 9. So that's how I would do 49. Let's look at another one while we're at it. I think it's quite useful to do this. So 99 is not IC for exactly the same reason, okay? Wrong. Because I can't put 1 in front of 100 because it's more than 1, 2 in front, okay? So that is not 99. I have to do the 90 first. And the way I'm going to do the 90 is going to be 10 less than 100. Okay, so that's my 90, XC. If you want, I can almost do my place value split. And then I'm going to do the 9, which would be 1 less than 10. So that's how I will do 99. Let's try moving up into some of these larger numbers now, and you'll see how the rules go. So let's do 378. Well, that's going to be 300, no problem to do C, C, C. Now 70, I'm going to do 50, which is L. Then I'm going to follow that by a couple of 10s, X, X. And I've got to do my 8, which is going to be 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can see how they could start to get quite big. And again, I can do my place value split for 300, 70 and 8. All right, let's do 489. Now I can't do 4 lots of 100 because I can't repeat 100 4 times. So I'm going to have to do 100 less than 500. So that will be C and then D, because D is 500. So that's my 400 sorted. Now I'm going to do my 80, which is going to be 50, and then 60, 70, 80. And then lastly, I'm going to do my 9, which is going to be 1 less than 10. Okay, should we do one more? Let's go for 994. So let's do the 900 first. Well, that's going to be 100 less than 1,000, and it's fine to do that because I can just go, that's only 2 away. So I'm going to do CM for my 900. Do my little lines here. I quite like that. It really helps me. 90 is going to be 10 less than 100. So that's going to be XC. So that's my tens column done. And then lastly, 4 is going to be 1 less than 5 to give me 4. So I've got 900, 100 less than 1,000. Got 90, 10 less than 100. And I got 4, 1 less than 5. So there you go. Easy just to get mixed up with how many numerals ahead you can subtract from. So have a look at this, go through. Remember my rules about you can't repeat or subtract 5, 50 or 500. You can only repeat 3 times. Go back to my previous video if you want to look again about how a smaller digit can subtract from a larger one, but it can only subtract from one that's no more than 1, 2 along in the order they are. So Roman numerals, I hope you have fun when you're looking at old buildings and working out when they are built, because often these are done in Roman numerals.